Even when I'm not fasting, I'm still fasting. I'm like Santa Claus. It's like you never know where I'm at, right? I always know what's going on. I'm always kind of fasting, even when I'm not. Okay. I know there's some ambiguity there because what I'm talking about today is a 12-hour fast, which I always do at least a 12-hour fast, even when I'm not fasting. But a 12-hour fast is not really a fast, if you ask me. That's just a lifestyle. So kind of semantics there, really, but I don't consider it a fast. It's a lifestyle. It's called time-restricted eating. So the point is even on days that I'm not doing a structured 18, 16, 20-hour fast, I'm still eating in a relatively compressed 12-hour window. And I have a multitude of reasons as to why I do that. It's a big part of why I'm able to kind of maintain the lifestyle that I maintain. So I'm going to go through it. I'm going to share the details. And as always, I'm going to share the science. The first piece is the blood sugar and the insulin piece. Okay, and there's some brand new studies that came out in October that are pretty awesome, right? So let's break it down. Okay, so this first study is wicked cool. It was published in the journal Nutrition and Diabetes, and it took a look at two groups, a group that fasted for 14 hours and then had a 10-hour time-restricted eating window versus a group that had a 12-hour fast and a 12-hour eating window. Here's the interesting kicker here. They ate the exact same thing. Controlled macros, controlled calories, okay? So the same across the board, 60 obese individuals. What they ended up finding out is that the 14-hour fasting group had an 8.5% reduction in their weight. Okay, the 12-hour fasting group had a 7.1% reduction in their weight. Now you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, well that tells me I want to do a 14-hour fast. That's not the point. The point here is that 12 hours is not really a fast. You stop eating at 7 p.m., you don't eat until 7 a.m. Not really fasting, it's just kind of life, and if you can be strict with that, it's great. And that alone triggered a 7.1% reduction in weight. Okay, it also triggered a 3.1 milligram per deciliter decrease in their fasting blood glucose, which isn't statistically huge, but then when you look at that result in people that had higher blood sugar at baseline, they had a dramatic improvement. So it really helped people that had high blood sugar to begin with. My point with this is that it shows that the length of time of a fast absolutely does matter. Okay, I just kind of want to say that for a minute. Same food, same calories, same macros, same protein, fats, carbs. One group 14 hours, one group 12, and the 14-hour group lost more weight, yet they ate the same amount of thing. So I kind of call nonsense on some of the people that say that the time doesn't really matter. Anyway, I digress. Okay, check this out. There was a brand new October 2021 study that came out in Nutrition and Metabolism that took a look at 60 overweight people with type 2 diabetes, and they put them on a time-restricted eating program where they ate in a compressed 10-hour window. I know, 10 hours, yeah. And they did that versus a control. They found after 12 weeks, there was an 18% reduction in their HbA1c. Okay, that's like their long-tail glucose. That is huge, showing a predominant strength when it comes down to a long-term glucose modulation. Also found that there was a 15% reduction in their fasting blood glucose levels and an improvement in beta cell function, meaning the pancreas was able to produce insulin better. Okay, so again, that's 10 hours, but the point is it's brand new and it's exciting to talk about. And today's sponsor is Thrive Market. So maybe you've been fasting. Maybe you're really hungry and you just want to enjoy some good food, but you're trying to sort of reduce the carbon footprint on your body, so to speak. Maybe you need something to kind of take the thought process and the guesswork out of the equation for you. That's where Thrive Market comes in. Not only are they an awesome sponsor on this channel that makes it possible to create this content and keep this whole ship sailing, but they have really wicked cool food items. My pantry is stocked full of really good tasting stuff. That way I can have it during my eating period. I feel like I can kind of literally have my cake and eat it too, because Thrive does the work. They vet out products. When products are on the Thrive Market shelf, so to speak, they've been vetted for good quality. You're not going to find stuff that has a bunch of garbage ingredients in it. That's what I love about it. It's doing the work for me. But it's really good for people like you that are my audience, because you don't necessarily have the time to sift through everything, but you need to be able to have some trust that it's a good product. So that's why I use them. I'm a huge fan of them. They've been a sponsor on this channel for years. Plus, that link down below saves you 25% off your first order, and you get a free gift. So make sure you use that link down below and check out Thrive and get some groceries delivered. Let's talk about the mechanisms here, because the reason that I fast in a 12-hour period, even when I'm not on a fasting day, is because I get that respective response, like where I feel like I'm doing something good for my glucose, I'm doing something good. I keep a wolf at the door when it comes down to metabolism with that. So how a lot of this is happening has to do with our circadian clocks. And we have two main systems. We have the master clock genes, okay, like our brain, that's sensitive to daylight. And then we have peripheral genes, peripheral clock genes that are in our tissues, okay? So in this case, we have like the circadian locomotor output clock, okay? That's like sort of our, literally acronym for clock, like a clock gene in our brain, and that responds to sunlight, to darkness. And then we have peripheral genes. We have BMAL, we have period genes, we have cryptochrome genes, and these all are kind of communicating with that clock. And the whole idea is to get those in synchronization, because the peripheral tissue clocks, they respond to what we eat and when we eat, whereas the big master clock is responding to the environment, okay? So now, if we take a look at some studies to see how important this is, it makes some sense. There was a study that was published in the journal Metabolism, and this is really important, so pay attention to this. They took a look at mice and they said, okay, we're gonna feed these mice the exact same thing, two groups. But one group is going to eat when they're supposed to be asleep, and the other group's gonna eat at their normal time. Same amount of food, same kind of food, okay? Very neutral situation here. The group that ate when they were supposed to be asleep gained more weight, okay? They developed a fatty liver, they ended up with leptin resistance, and they ended up developing all these other risk factors along with like that obesity risk, right? Just by changing when they ate because it was aligning with the wrong side of their circadian clock. Okay, so yeah, I'm not gonna start eating in the middle of the night, but what I will pay attention to is if 20% of my diet ends up overlapping with those clock genes that should be dictating like my sleep patterns and stuff like that, think about it. That's 20% of my daily calories that are aligning the wrong way. So again, it's not hard for me to stop eating at 6 or 7 p.m. and not eat until 6 or 7 a.m. the next day. There was a study that was published in the journal Cell Metabolism that demonstrated that a 12-hour time-restricted feeding window can absolutely express the genes that are associated with this. So what we want to do is we want to express those genes so that they have a more powerful effect. We don't want them to not get expressed. We want our peripheral genes to express so that they understand when it's daytime and when it's nighttime, and they respond to the food that we eat better. Another reason I'm a big fan of doing like a 12-hour fast, even on my non-fasting days, is simple. Okay, I like the flexibility. If it grants me more potential glucose control and more ability to have a little fun with my diet on days that I'm not fasting, it works really well. On a fasting day, where I'm actually doing longer fasts, it's hard for me to get adequate calories in. It just is. You end up in somewhat of a deficit. And you have to make sure that you contrast that with days that you're not fasting. But I don't want to throw it all to the wind and completely lose it all. I want to still be able to have it in a confined period where I'm still getting benefit and still kind of fighting off that insulin resistance that I really keep a wolf at the door about. Then there's the whole muscle building piece. Okay, I'm big on maintaining my muscle. I don't want to be giant, I don't want to be huge, but I like carrying some muscle because it's part of my brand and it makes me feel good. Okay, but when I'm able to do sort of a time-restricted feeding pattern like this, it maintains that insulin sensitivity for me, which makes it so that my cells are able to take up glucose and protein after a workout a lot easier. That's the whole idea. And it's not hard for me to train in a fasted state at the end of a 12-hour fast. Like if I stop eating at 7 and then I get up in the morning and I work out at 6 a.m., that means that I can break my fast at 7 a.m., have it be my break fast meal, but also my post-workout meal, meaning I am going to absorb the nutrients, the protein, the potential carbs from that meal better. So it just works out really good. It's like always have that time-restricted feeding protocol, even if it's not fasting in place. Then there was a study that was published in the journal Nutrition, again, a rodent model study, but it was looking at microbial richness, and it found that when time-restricted eating was at place, then there was a better improvement, just more of an improvement in microbial diversity and richness. Okay, now a lot of this had to do, once again, with circadian clock genes. When everything is aligned, you can potentially modulate your gut bacteria a little bit more to be, I don't know, going the direction you want it to. In this particular case, they saw a decrease in Firmicutes and an increase in what's called Bacteroidetes. Bacteroidetes is a bacteria that produces the short-chain fatty acids that can be very, very good for glucose modulation in and of itself. Okay, so let's kind of table that for a second, but what about overall longevity too? Okay, it doesn't take a whole lot in the world of time-restricted eating to activate sirtuins. Now that's a whole different conversation in and of itself, but when I'm looking at it from a perspective of how do I stay optimized for as long as I possibly can, having sort of that NAD conservation so that I'm able to activate what are called sirtuins, which are genes that are associated with FOXO3 expression and just gene expression associated with longevity, that plays a big role too. Essentially what you're doing is you're taking energy that would normally go into processing food and energy and electrons, and you're kind of shuttling it over into activating sirtuins and activating things that play a role in our longevity. It's a very colloquial way of saying it. So try it. Okay, you don't have to fast every day. You should be doing your 18-hour fast or so, like 2-3 days a week. But every other day, you can still do a mini fast. It really works well. So as always, keep it locked in here on my channel. I'll see you tomorrow.